All right, so there's a couple of more things I want to add to this app. So one thing you'll notice is that I have all these products that I can edit, but I don't really have a way to upload images to these. So let's go and log in as admin. If this is the login, I totally forget what the login is at this point. Yep, that's it. And when you edit something that exists already, like this product here, and click edit, we don't have a way to change the image. So we want to kind of follow the same approach that we did for adding a product, but to also allow the ability for people to change an image when they're editing a product. So this should be hopefully straightforward. It's going to follow a very similar approach to what we did on the last part. So let's go here to the edit product page. And right now we don't need the terminal, so I'm going to hide that so we have more real estate. And let's also open the create product page because we're going to do something very similar. So let's go ahead and copy this function out because we're going to use the same function in two places. So just cut it out, export it. It looks like we probably need access to set form as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just have that passed in as a dependency or a parameter. Looks like we also need form. So I have to do some refactoring here to get this all working, but let's just go ahead and delete this one because now we're doing like a shared function that's going to be used between both of these and find where we're using it. So if I go down here, I guess it's this one. We need to also pass in form and set form. All right, so that should hopefully fix it. And while we're here, you might as well just cut this function out as well and put this up here and export it. We could probably make a separate file over here to put these little form utility functions, but for right now, just keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate things. Just change a little bit, make sure it works. Let's do the same thing for the other update form groups. Let's go here. And we are going to edit all of these to take in form and set form. Now, if I probably spent more time thinking about this, there might be a cleaner way to do this, but like using a custom hook, maybe we can have a form. I don't know, this works, but let's go back to the edit product page and we want to actually get rid of these functions that we kind of added. So this one, that's already defined in the other create products page. Let's just use it. Go down here and we're going to pass in form and set form. And I'm going to do the same thing where we call it down here and for description. And right now it's red because we haven't imported it. So let's go ahead and see if auto import will work. So let's import that one. And let's see. Here we go. All right, so we changed some decent amount of code. Let's go back and make sure that we didn't like break anything. So go to the create product page. I'm going to say well, ABC cost is 123 and just type in some stuff here. We don't technically need an image, but let's just select one anyway. All right, so did this work? ABC 123. Here we go. All right, so the create product page is still working. Make sure you always double check whenever you change anything to make sure it works. I'm seeing an error in the console. Maybe we should kind of figure out what's going on there. Where's that coming from? That's strange. Yeah, I don't know where this little error is coming from. Something is making a request to 8080 undefined. Oh, maybe that's the image. Yeah, okay. So don't worry about that. That's just because these images don't exist, so it's like failing. All right, so let's go back to the edit page and make sure that we didn't break anything there too, right? Anytime you make a change, just verify that stuff still works. Click save, make sure that those showed up. Cool. All right, so what we want to do is, again, we want to bring in that image upload input box. So I'll go to the create product page and I'll just cut or copy this code here. I'm going to go to edit product. I'm going to paste that in. This doesn't exist, so I'm going to auto import it. And at this point, we should have access to that image field. Okay, so everything should look very identical. And in fact, you could probably make a shared component between edit and create because they're kind of the exact same form. So I could potentially abstract like all this stuff away into a shared component, maybe use like a custom hook or something. Let's just focus on one thing at a time. So let's go ahead and click on this, select an image of eggs, and notice that when we click save, it's not going to actually update the image because we haven't updated the backend yet. So let's go ahead and go to the backend before we actually try to like submit that. So I'm going to open up my server folder. I'm going to go to source and let's go to index. This is where you define the routes and we want to find the one where we are updating the product. So update product. And we could also do a put here. I don't know why I did patch, but I guess patch works okay. Let's go to this controller here. And what we're going to be doing is basically doing the same logic that we did for the create product. We need to be able to allow the user to upload a file. And I'm going to go ahead and, where's that at? I'm going to put that here. So now that we have that pasted in as a middleware function, we should be able to send a file property in our payload and our controller can access that, right? So I'm also going to open up my create product controller and we're going to look through here because we need to grab, where do we grab this stuff? Where's the file? Oh, it's right here. All right, I'm having trouble seeing some stuff today. Let's see, I'm going to grab this and go to the edit product controller. And what we need to do differently is we need to basically assign that image. I'm going to do this. This might be easier. I'm going to grab the image file name from the multipart middleware that we passed in, and I'm going to paste that here inside that assign function. So now, let's see if this works. I'm getting a syntax error. I think I just need an extra parenthesis. Actually, what's going on here? I think I have a comma here. All right, so why is this complaining? Sometimes linter sucks in VS Code. Like sometimes you have to like restart your VS Code or reload the linter because it just has like red squigglies everywhere and they don't go away. So at this point, I think we should be able to save this and it'll work. So let's go ahead and click on save. And it says pending, so the backend probably crashed. Oh, I know why. So again, the front end, we need to do a multi-part upload. We didn't change the front end to do that. So let's go back to the edit product and we're going to have to actually refactor this logic to look very similar to the create product. So again, let's just copy all this honestly, and we should probably come back and refactor this. This is just getting really messy. All right, so we want to do a request to the edit endpoint, and I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of this, get rid of that, and I think that should work. Let's try this again. Let's see if it works. I'm going to click save. It is sending something over, but the product ID is bad. So let's go back and look at what's going on here. So I need to make this be backticks because it was not interpolating that product ID. All right, you can see this the full code here. It's the same as the create product, but we just have a different endpoint. So let's go back and let's save this. Let's see what happens. All right, so we're getting a 404. Request method is post. Okay, so I'm doing the wrong method here because I copied and pasted code. We're supposed to use a patch here. Let's try it again. Let's try it one more time. We'll click save. And it's pending. We're doing let's see what request we're doing right now. I don't know. The backend must be failing at this point. Let's go look at the backend. Man, I thought this feature would be pretty easy to add in, but it's turning into a lot of work. File name is undefined. So update product controller, it's saying file name is not defined because cannot read property file name. So that means rec.file is not defined, which means that either the multi-part upload is not working or we're not passing file correctly, which would be this one. So yeah, let's go back. Maybe you can only do a post on multi-part uploads or something, which would be kind of a pain, but I don't think that's the case. It has multi-part here, and we're passing file of undefined. So the issue here is probably because React like refreshed this component, and this file is no longer like in memory. Let's just double check if that's the case. Sometimes that happens. I'm gonna do that, click save, and that worked. Okay, so I don't know how I debugged that in my head, but when you run into enough bugs during your career, you kind of know, you have like this intuition of what might be wrong. So always keep refreshing your browser in your memory, because that is one of the first lines of defense to debugging. Something might be cached, something's not fully reloaded with great React app. Let's get some different images, because now we just have a bunch of eggs, and it's hard to tell like what is what. So milk image. Go here. Let's just download a random thing of milk. That this image is huge, so I don't know if that's a good idea. Let's just grab it anyway. So let's go back, and we're going to edit this one. I'm going to upload an image of milk. Cool. So now we can edit, and now we can create products. This page just looks horrible because everything is just like its own height. But let's try to do a delete now. We've done almost all the CRUD methods, but we haven't done delete. Actually, hold on a second. Let's go back to edit. Notice that when you click it, there is no image being displayed here. So I don't know if maybe we should display an image, because I think what happens if you were to click submit, it might just delete the image because now we don't have one selected. So let's try that and see what happens. Yeah, so there's no image, so it's like failing. So let's fix that, because we don't want people to have to upload an image every single time. So let's go back to the update product controller. And what we're going to do here is only do this object assign if image.rec is defined. So I'm going to do something like this. And I think this will just not, yeah, that'll probably jack it up. Let's just do, we're going to refactor this code a little bit. So instead of just doing that, because image could be undefined, in fact, any of these could be undefined because we're doing a patch request, we're just going to say, we're going to do this and say if image, then we're going to say product.image is equal to image. Okay, it's a little bit of a hack. I'm sure there's a cleaner way to do this, but now if someone decides to not upload a new image every time they're editing, it shouldn't like blow it away. So let's just put like hello world here. Click save. This works. Hello world is printed out, and the image is still the eggs. So also what would be nice is on this edit page, we could actually see an image. So let's go to the edit product page. And let us go here, and we are going to go to where we're displaying that form. So here, and it would probably be nice to show like what the current image is. So we could say like, just make an image here, and we're going to put the source equal to form.filename. In fact, we probably need the full URL. So I'm going to say HTTP localhost 8080/form. Again, this is probably needs to be refactored. You shouldn't have like a hard-coded URL, but this is just to show you how to do this locally. So I think this should work. Let's just see if the image shows up. All right, it's not showing up. So let's figure out what's going on here. First of all, am I doing the wrong name? I think I am. It needs to be called file, not file name. I thought that's what it was. Okay, that's not working either. All right, so let's just go ahead and verify a couple things. First of all, when this page loads, we should be fetching the product from the backend. So let's click on the network request here, and let's look at what comes back. We get back something called image. And I think in my code, I'm trying to do file. So let's rename our code to do image here. And if you're using TypeScript, this would have already told me what I was doing wrong. So there's another argument for why you should use TypeScript. And if I refresh the page, let us see what's going on now. So still, it's not loading the image. We get back the image here. This should have been fetching that from localhost 8080/the image, but it's not. So let's try to figure out what is going on here. Why is this not working? Localhost 8080/form/image, that should exist. Am I on the wrong page? Edit product. All right, let's go back to the main page and let's go to images and see like where those are hosted. So I might be getting something confused. This is localhost 8080 at this endpoint. If I go back to edit, it's fetching it from undefined. So the question is why is this undefined? Maybe I accidentally deleted it when I did the update. That could be it. Let's just change it to milk real quick and click save, and then go back and see what happens. All right, it's still undefined, so let us figure out what's going on. I know I said that like 500 times. All right, so when this component mounts, we are fetching data from the backend, and you can see here we're only doing set form on 3 attributes. So this is kind of a problem. I mean, what we could probably do instead is just do this. There's really no, I don't know if there'd be an issue with doing that. It would be easier to like add new fields and not have to like worry about refactoring. But the only issue is that now there's like a bunch of data that comes back. Like you have like ID and all this stuff, and you typically don't want to send that to the backend in your payload. So let's just do it the old-fashioned way. I'm just going to do this. All right, so that should fix our issue. The issue now that's the image is huge, right? That milk is going off the page here. So let's see if we can kind of fix that with just adding like a width of 100%. So I'm going to say style or class name is equal to W of 100. I forget how you do it in Bootstrap. Okay, that is how you do it in Bootstrap. So I'll just give it a width of 100% so it kind of doesn't go off the page. But now we should be able to change the image, and it's not going to reflect real time, which is kind of a pain. But now when we go back, you can actually see that the image that we have. So let's not focus too much on this. I think there's a lot of work that could be done on all these pages, but again, we're just trying to like learn a little bit and not build a production ready site. So another thing that'd be cool is when you go to the edit page, we should be able to delete the product. So let's just add a button like up here somewhere called like delete. And then that's going to do a delete request to the backend to delete this from Mongo. All right, so how do we do this? Well, if you wanted to change the edit page, you got to go to edit product JSX. And then under the title, let's just add a button. So let's make sure that we import React Bootstrap. We should already have it imported. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a button here and say delete. And save that, make sure it shows up. It does. And type, I'm going to say warning. Is that a proper thing in Bootstrap? No? That was called something. Oh, it's called variant. So let's go back up to the button. No, I want like danger. Danger should be red, right? There we go. So now when you click on it, what we want it to do is actually like make a request to the backend to delete this product and maybe redirect the user back to the dashboard. So let's try to do that. On this component here, we need onClick, and I'm going to say do an anonymous function, and I'm going to say delete product. And I think that should be good enough. We just need to make sure we make that function. So I'm going to go ahead and make it up here. And this probably needs to be an async function since we're going to hit an endpoint. But we already have the product ID that's actually defined from the router, right? We have use params and we have the product ID. So what we want to do is basically do a delete request to that endpoint, like so. And you typically don't need to pass in like any form data when you do a delete request, but we probably should still pass in the authorization token. And once you've deleted it, we probably want to go ahead and redirect back to the dashboard. All right, so these two pieces of logic should be kind of familiar. We've already done this. We're just changing the delete request and then going to the dashboard. So let's go down to where we call that delete product here, and we could just simplify this because we're not passing any arguments or parameters. So let's do that. And let's just try this. So now when I click delete, that product should have been deleted, but we don't have a endpoint for deleting. So keep that in mind. If we go back to this tab here, fetch XHR and clear it, you'll notice that when we click delete, we get a 404 because this URL doesn't exist. But luckily we know how to do this. So let's just go back to our server index file. Let's make a new endpoint, and we are going to put a delete endpoint on. Let's just do something like this, copy that. I'll do a delete and get rid of that. All right, so now when someone does a delete request to this URL, we're going to call a new controller called delete product controller, which we haven't created. So let's just go ahead and create one here. And we are going to go ahead and make it, let's just copy some code from like update product, I guess. So I'm going to say delete product controller. And really all we need is a product ID. Like we don't need all this other stuff. And I think you could just call either delete or remove. We'll find out real quick. I could go to the docs and try to Google what it is, but I mean, this should hopefully work. So you get the product ID that's in the URL, you find that product from MongoDB, and then you delete that product, and then you return the product that you deleted back to the front end. So let's just go here and make sure that you auto import that new controller, and let's try it out. It might crash, and if it does, we'll just go to the Mongo's docs and figure out what's going on. So let's just click on delete here now, and that product looks like it got deleted. We got a 200 status code back. That means everything is good on the server side. And now that product should be gone. Let's just delete all of these because there's too many placeholder ones. As you can see, as I'm deleting them, they are disappearing from our page, which is a good sign. All right, so we basically did all the CRUD methods. I mean, instead of doing a put request to the backend, we did a patch. But you could also do a put if you want to. It doesn't really matter. Just know that put is typically when you have the full object, you want to override it in the database, and patch is when you have a partial update of your object in your database. So like, let's say you just had an endpoint that just needed to update the image. Well, you probably want to do a patch request. But technically, I think I could have made this a put because we're passing the full object from the front end. So let's actually kind of clean up some code. I think we've done a lot of work. There's not much left to the series other than making like a checkout page, which we might do in the next part. But I think this code is getting pretty ugly in a couple places, pretty messy. So let's try to go back and just clean up a couple of code things. So the first thing I noticed is that deleting a product, updating a product, and creating a product should all be behind authentication, right? But some of our endpoints that we created, like this one, doesn't check to make sure there's a header. Doesn't check to make sure you're an admin user. We only did that on the create product page or the create product controller. So let's take this logic where we're basically getting the token from the header, checking that you're an admin, and we're going to take that out and put it in a middleware function. So I'm going to make a new folder called middlewares, and I'm going to say is is admin. How about that? So that's going to be a middleware that we can basically run like this. And middlewares in Express are pretty simple. They look like a very normal like controller where you have a rec and a res, but you have a third argument called next. And basically you just need to make sure you call next in this function somewhere so that it will continue on into the next step of the process. So what do I mean by that? Well, basically, if I were to say is admin here, kind of use that middleware. If you don't call the next function inside of this middleware, then it's never going to go and execute this code. It's just going to stop dead in its tracks and return back to the user. So keep that in mind, but we're going to paste that code in that we kind of stole from this create products page. And let's just go ahead and also do some stuff like this. Let's see. So what do we need to do here? Basically, we need to just do the same logic. We'll refactor this controller in 1 second. Let's just finish out this middleware, and I'll show you how to use this and link this all together. So same logic, we get the header, we get the authorization header from the request. We actually get the token part of that header, and then we try to verify it and make sure that you're an admin user. So if you are not an admin user, then we are going to still send back the authorization error. And if there's an error at all, we could also just say return res.status of 403. But if all of this seems like it works, in fact, I'm going to wrap all this in a try catch because sometimes people don't send these headers in, or you might have your malformed header and it might crash. So we want to make sure that if anything goes wrong with trying to process that token, then just send back an authorization error or authentication error, whichever one you want. In this one, it might be a 401 authentication error. All right, so if you're not an admin, send back authorization error. If you're not authenticated because the token's bad, send back a 401. But the important part is just call next here. If none of this stuff fails, then just call next, and it's going to allow Express to go to the next part of the controller and execute the code. Now the benefit of this, the benefit of middleware, is now I don't have to put that logic inside of this controller. This is kind of abstracted away and put into a shared piece of code. So we could just delete all this. We don't need to do this catch anymore with authorization error. So let's just delete the try catch here. And I think this should just work. So again, your refactor code, make sure you test it out. Let's go to create a product. Let's just create one real quick. I don't need an image, so I'll click save. Actually, you might need an image. Let's see what's going on here. What did it fail? All right, so the issue is because I'm importing a file that's in a different controller. I mean, like these should probably, the secret string should probably come from env, which we could do that refactoring as well. But let's just add a dot here, say controllers, and import that secret string from that login controller. We're going to refactor this in a second too. Well, let's just make sure this works. If I go back and hit that endpoint, does it work? It fails, but it's failing for a different reason. Cannot read property file name of undefined. So again, it's because this endpoint expects file name to be defined. So let's just go ahead and pretend like sometimes file might not be passed in, so that if the user decides to not upload a file at this time, it doesn't crash the backend. So I click submit. It'll create this product and everything should work. And also if I log out, or if I try to do the same request without a bearer token, I think we'll get a 403. So to show that, let's just copy this URL as curl. This is a really useful tool, like copy it as curl. And then go to your terminal somewhere, I'll make a new one. And we're gonna paste that in, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna change this token a little bit. I'm just gonna go ahead and change like one thing in this token, do a request, and we should get back an authentication error. So the endpoint's working, our refactoring is good. Does that make sense? We basically just did a request with a bad token to verify that our middleware function threw an exception. Yeah, so we have a cool little helper function now, and we can use that on these other admin blocked endpoints. So we need to basically add it to this one, and we need to add it to this one. And now those two endpoints will be covered with our authorization admin checker middleware function, if that makes sense. All right, so remember we brought in like a .env file. We should probably also put like that secret password thing inside the .env file. So instead of putting this my super secret string here, honestly, we should just put like, go to the .env, and I'm gonna say JWT secret is equal to that. All right, so what this allows us to do is now this secret code is not going to be stored in our code or in GitHub. So what we could do now is go back to where we were kind of storing that super secret code, I believe was login controller. And really, we don't need to export that anymore. We could just use it directly from process env. So I'm going to say process.env.jwt secret here. Find out where else we're using that. I think we're using it here. We'll say process.env JWT secret. We can delete that. And I think that was all we need to do. So let me double check, because I know we have it in the login controller. Yeah, I think those are the only two places that we have it. So let's just double check this. If I go back and make sure the server didn't crash, let's go back and edit something. Let's go back and delete something. Everything should work fine. All right, so that's, I think, all I have time for to show you in this little part of the series. I think we've done a lot of code refactoring. I think there's some more refactoring we could do in the front end, but overall, I mean, like, spend time to look at these components and figure out, like, how can I maybe clean this code up? Or like, obviously we shouldn't have URLs coded here. We need to have a services function, services folder, which abstracts away like some of this logic. But yeah, just one thing at a time. You know, you don't need to build production ready code from the get-go, especially as a beginner. Like, it's an organic, iterative approach. Write some code, make sure it works, come back, refactor the code, make sure it works. That's the process that I like to do. And I know people online when they're watching tutorials, the moment you do something that's like dirty, they leave a comment and they're like, dude, you're writing some sloppy code. And it's like, well, I'm showing you my process. This is literally how I work on my full-time job. I'll write some sloppy code, but before I get it into my GitHub repo, before I push it out there for like a code review for other developers, I'll come back and I'll clean it up. I just want to make sure that I can get something working first, and then I'll refactor it to make it look nice. All right, so stay tuned for the next part of the series if you are following along.